What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. It seems that the 2027 prediction of an alien invasion is back in the news, and I've got the updates for you. Now, before we begin, I want to let you know that I did make a video about this, covering it pretty extensively. I'll put a link in the description so you can go check it out. It's well worth watching. Now, in today's video, we've got some different compilations and new updated clips to give a little more background and context about this whole thing, right? So is 2027 a huge year and date that there are aliens coming to invade our planet, right? Because that seems to be something that's being spread around, and it's absolutely something that I want to cover. Please hit that like button, Vetters. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every day about the UFO phenomena. Trying to reach 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. You also help me do that, Vetters. All right, let's jump into this. I do want to give a special shout out to Red Panda Koala on Twitter. I will put his link down below. Please go follow him and support him. Him and I had a conversation about this because he's covered this pretty extensively, to be honest, and I'm going to be using a few of his clips in today's video, along with a long compilation video that he made of different people talking about this 2027 alien invasion. All right, so it's definitely something that's out there, but it's hidden, right? It's like a hidden in plain sight sort of thing. So first, let's start off with why I even wanted to make this video, which was a post right here that I'm going to read out. And it's the Rafios Network. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce this, but let's read. So we reached out to a figure who recently testified. We invited them to a high-level signal group we have going with about 6 people so far. The goal of this group is to figure out how to affect the most change in the disclosure process and how to speed it up. We have until 2027, apparently, and officials are still lying to us about what's coming. 2026, all hell is going to break loose. They don't want everyone knowing this information, but it's a crime against humanity. We have a right to know about something that affects the futures of every single human being. We are talking a mass extinction event. All the people in the group but me possess clearance. That's the only thing I will reveal about the members. I extended an invitation to the group to this individual. Months ago, they sent me out of the blue an invite to a social media website to my email address. I'm guessing that's how they establish comms. Anyways, they've put me in a position. Do I make a post documenting who they are and how they are holding up the process by having double standards? They didn't even respond to the invitation, just blocked me. Should we release the message and identity? And they never released the message or the identity, and that's the issue with these kind of posts, if I'm being honest. So nothing against this gentleman or this Twitter account, but telling people there's a mass extinction event coming in 2027 with zero evidence to prove it is, how should I say, dangerous. Right? That's a dangerous thing to do to get people worked up, right? Because then it motivates you to, you think you're doing something for the greater good, and it might make you do things you normally wouldn't do, to be honest with you, right? So let's jump into this, y'all. Now, before we get into some clips of former CIA agent John Ramirez speaking about this 2027 rumor, which in my opinion is kind of where it all started, right? I mean, this 2027 alien invasion threat even got on Rogan.
And did you notice how recently, like a month ago, sort of, there was this breaking story that set the whole UAP community on fire about this disclosure that I think Jeremy Corbell was coming out and whistleblowing on, if I remember correctly, that they were saying that they're gonna they're gonna trick us by saying that there's a mothership arriving in 3 years.
But the lie is coming. All indications, like all of them, is that that lie is going to be that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth. And that is the lie they're going to want you to believe. That is the lie you will be told. You're going to be told that there is a craft on its way to Earth. That's the lie. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I sent you 2 texts today with a year. Not from me. Nope. I'm not going to propagate that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I
and
did hear that.
And it becomes this thing where it's like, how do you know he's saying that he's exposing it, but how do you know if he's exposed? It's just like, it's the ultimate test of, are you skeptical enough and also open-minded enough and
Right.
thoughtful enough?
Also, if there's a believer, get them some bullshit. Feed the believer some bullshit.
Exactly.
And
They don't even have to know that they're in on it, right?
They don't have to know. And it could be like kind of plausible bullshit, and then it could be corroborated with some other bullshit
Yep.
that you have.
I think that's what most bullshit artists are in most fields. I think it's usually useful idiots, like people like myself, genuinely. Like I am in some ways one of those people in the sense that if I get fooled by something, I become that.
Right.
Which is why it's so important to think really carefully and to be okay with being wrong, because
Right.
you never know what your sources are.
Yeah.
And that's also why I'm really careful not to do very many like leaks or whistleblows or like, because how do I know who the fuck you are? I don't want to spend all the time to try to vet you and find out where you came from and your
Right.
story came from. I'd way rather just learn.
I mean, they make a few good points there, if I'm being honest, right? So let's dive in a little bit more into this 2027 alien invasion, right? Here is John Ramirez, former CIA agent, talking about these rumors and his latest statements about it.
There's quite a bit of talk about this 2027 thing.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing like a really viral video, and I think we shared one
Yeah,
on
yeah.
our Instagram. And I know there's some miscommunication about that or misunderstanding. Are you able to just sort of clarify what you meant by your comments of an event potentially or something happening in 2027?
Right. I don't know about any event. What I was clarifying was the channelers seem to say in unison that something is going to happen.
Right.
And to put it in perspective, that discussion occurred in September of 2022. So I went to a SCIF in Washington, D.C., where that question was raised because the people in the SCIF mentioned it, as part of the conversation about, hey, we also, hear about 2027. What do you know about it? So that SCIF meeting was in the context of UAP NHI. And so that topic of 2027 came up in that context. So what do you know about it? I said, I don't know anything about 2027. I've been reading that channelers have been talking about something occurring in the future. And 2022, 2027 was 5 years. And also Lou Elizondo in an interview this year, and this is with The Theory of Everything. So in that interview, he said, get a hobby for 5 years and it'll all come out. So 2022 plus 5 is 2027. So I said, I don't know. Maybe that's when, the government's going to plan to disclose something, or the channelers think some shift event is happening in our consciousness, or actual NHI will be landing. I don't know. But, consult with them. I specifically mentioned Anjali Schultz. Talk to her or talk to Chris Bledsoe.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what Lou meant, ask him about why he said, get a hobby for 5 years, it'll all come out. Ask them. But I don't know. But they still said, well, what is your personal opinion? My personal opinion. So I said, well, I really don't have one, but gee whiz, it'd be great if 2027, maybe they'll show up. Maybe the NHI will show up. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe they'll show up. But I posed back, well, suppose they do show up. Wouldn't it behoove the US government right now in 2022 to start disclosing everything it knows so that people all over the world will be prepared in the event that such a thing would happen? Because if such a thing happens with governments of the world denying the existence of UAP and NHI, if UAP and NHI showed up after years of denial with absolutely no disclosure of even the possibility of this being a reality, there will be like a lot of like panic. You don't want that. You don't want people to panic because you didn't prepare them. So it behooves the US government to prepare the people to start disclosing what it knows before any such event would occur. With the caveat, I don't know. I never predicted that they'll show up in 2027. I want them to show up now. It will just end everything, just land now. By golly, if you're out there, land, show yourself. But there seems to be some kind of timetable of this occurring. So I don't know what that timetable is, but we are in what, to use the movie title, the age of disclosure.
It's kind of interesting that John is saying that like I didn't say anything about 2027. I mean, I didn't come from me. You know, it's coming from other people. You know, check with the channelers. Who are the channelers? What does that mean? Is that some like R&B 60s music group? Like the channelers? You know, if it was one channeler, right? Like, and basically when they say channelers, I'm assuming they just mean people who channel the NHI. I don't know, right? It's so confusing. But he's, in my opinion, and I would say this to John, it kind of feels like he's evading the responsibility of things that he did say in the past, because he's kind of claiming, you know, I didn't say anything, right? Well, check these clips out. This is from the last few years of what exactly he said, which is what everyone's basing it off of.
And in many ways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do.
Have you gotten a phone call after speaking?
Yes.
You have?
Well, not a phone call. I would say I got a text message.
Okay, that said, chill out.
No, the text message said that I got several phone calls from CIA concerning what you said about 2027.
Now, don't worry, because I have more. Now, let's let John continue to sort of explain a little bit this, because he was recently on another podcast and talked about it a little bit more. And just to be fair to John, let's let him explain how this all got out of hand.
What can you tell us about 2027? And thank you for your courage to discuss the truth.
All right. You're welcome. I will say this. There were some American government officials. They're assisting in the disclosure process behind the scenes. Back in the September of 2022, they invited me to meet them in Washington, D.C. And these officials requested anonymity, which I will honor. I can say this: they were not CIA officers. So during the course of the meeting, which was held in a SCIF, it's a sensitive compartmented information facility, SCIF, one of the officials mentioned, I didn't mention, one of the officials mentioned that the year 2027 emerged in the various social media venues. And I was asked about my knowledge of that year. And I said, yep, I acknowledged that, yeah, it seems to loom large within the channeler community, spiritual consciousness communities. They're the ones talking about 2027. And I suggested that why don't you research what Anjali Schultz and Chris Bledsoe have stated about these future years. And keep in mind, this is 2022, so 2027 was 5 years away. And I was pressed for my own personal opinion. And I reiterated, I defer to the channelers. I don't know what's going to happen in 2027. The channelers seem to be talking about it. I did say that I referenced Louis Elizondo, told him that in 2022, that same year that I talked to these folks in the SCIF, stated that we should engage in a hobby for 5 years and all will come out by then. So I gave that out. And 5 years from 2022 is 2027. So maybe it's some kind of disclosure timetable. But when they further pressed me for my personal opinion, and I said, I personally hope that these NHI beings might make their presence known by then, that they control disclosure, not humans. They can show up anytime they want to. They chosen not to, but suppose they do show up in 2027, then it behooves the American government to start disclosing everything it knows about NHI and their technologies now. Let's use these 5 years to start moving forward. Otherwise, if you don't disclose anything and they show up on their own accord, that's an uncontrolled, unpredictable shock to the system, and that would be disastrous. That's the story behind 2027. I never said that we're being invaded by ETs in 2027. They're going to land in 2027. A lot of bullshit came out in social media by these social media influencers, but that was completely untrue. It was just a discussion about what I conveyed from the channelers, quoting Lou Elizondo, and my personal hope that the government would start disclosing before they show up on their own, and that's 2027.
I think I'm one of these bullshit influencers he's talking about, and that's okay. He's allowed to have his opinion, but I would just respectfully disagree with John because you kind of want to have your cake and eat it too, right? You kind of want to say these things about 2027 and show how important it is, but at the same time say, I'm not saying that anything, you can't have it both ways, in my opinion, right? And what part of that stuck out to you? Because one part in particular was him talking about what was said in a skiff. It's literally a skiff, as he described it, a secured compartmented information facility, which you're not allowed to say things that are talked about in the skiff. So there he is revealing things that were said in the skiff, which doesn't make any sense at all, right? That someone needs to help me, figure that out, because that doesn't make any sense to me. But again, it kind of comes back at the end there and still says 2027, right? Like, and the other clip, right, he was talking about how essentially, we should be prepared because it would be unfair to the American people if, would cause panic. Well, it causes panic to say things without any proof. Where's the proof of 2027? Even from these channelers or whoever you're saying you're getting the information. So you're telling me that we're getting information and trying to give it in skiffs in the CIA from people who? Just random channelers, the channeler community? Now we're, no offense to them, but now we're listening to them about how we're going to proceed with the American people and worldwide disclosure. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? Where's the proof of something coming in 2027? Then you can base things off of it, right? You don't just start saying 2027. You know what I mean? That's what creates panic, this unknown, right? So in my opinion, there's a lot wrong here, right? And I think John's trying to wiggle out of it a little bit, which, okay, fair. He's allowed to have his opinion. He's allowed to have his say, and he's allowed to push back. Totally fair, which is why I'm including both of those statements from him, both of those clips, which are recent, right, within the last few weeks, one just days ago, right? So, but let's move on, because there's a lot more that's been said about 2027. And to be fair to John, not just from John, right, but it kind of originated there. I mean, I hate to say it. He keeps bringing up Luis Elizondo, but the truth is it is coming from a lot of different people. So let's look at some more clips, right? This is a compilation that Red Panda Koala put together of people talking about this 2027 alien invasion.
Definitely. It better happen before that. I don't think we're going to be in any shape in a decade to be doing very much of anything. So I'm not hopeful for the future direction that we're moving in.
And the future direction, climate-wise, AI-wise?
Climate-wise and geopolitical-wise. That's the thing I think is going to kind of come. I think things are going to be pretty difficult starting in a few years. And from what I've been told by sources.
You hear of something big coming down the pike. Have you heard of these claims? And if so, do you have any idea what it may be?
Yes, I've heard of them. Yes, I'm aware of them. And I'm not able to have that conversation.
Got it.
It's not my conversation to have, but I am aware of it.
2027 was mentioned at one time. I've heard other dates in the 30s. I don't know. I've got no idea. I have no leads that make me feel strongly that this is true. I think it's speculative.
Reading a lot of stuff that says, full contact in 2027. And there's all these people that used to work for NASA or all these other organizations out there talking about how our history as a species is really simply a...
Some may feel in the government the mere fact of acknowledging this, if there is some sort of malintent, may push up artificially a clock that exists somewhere for these things to say, okay, the foolish humans are now, the cat's out of the bag, they know we're here, we need to go in now.
And so at a certain point, where do they have to do something to protect other places? Because there's a universal principle of self-defense. So far, we've just been cruising along, getting away with this foolish and childish behavior. But I can't give you a timeline on that. But I think that, I honestly, from what I've heard from very senior intelligence sources inside the so-called illegal operations is that it's thought that it would not be able to go on beyond 2026.
Story that set the whole UAP community on fire about this disclosure that I think Jeremy Corbell was coming out and whistleblowing on, if I remember correctly, that they were saying that they're gonna they're gonna trick us by saying that there's a mothership arriving, and
that lie is going to be that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth. And that is the lie they're going to want you to believe. That is the lie you will be told. You're going to be told that there is a craft on its way to Earth. That's the lie.
where it's like, how do you know he's saying that he's exposing it, but how do you know if he's exposed? It's just like,
yes, there was an official effort by some people in the government to actually look at this data, and there were some products produced. That's a fact. I won't go into more detail than that, but it wasn't 2027.
Okay.
And
no, tell them what Bluebeam is.
The allegation was that there is an alien mothership that is about 2 years away from Earth, and it's going to make landfall on Earth in 2027. And that is the government's PSYOP plan.
I'm just concerned. That's all.
Yeah.
So I don't think 10 years in the future. I only think 3 or 4 years into the future.
Mm-hmm. It's too uncertain past that point.
I would say so.
On mission, I know that it actually occurred. They mentioned Holloman. They mentioned an agreement of some kind, and that there is a 50 to 70 year periodicity when that sort of a meeting takes place again. So we're in that time zone right now.
And is this the alleged countdown clock that we've been hearing about?
Yes, that's the one Ramirez and I and everybody else has talked about. We still don't know who originated it. But yeah, we all kind of tend to have fallen onto that time frame.
A lot of what we take for granted now in life, I don't think is going to be, we're not going to have it. A lot of things we have now that makes our lives as wonderful as they are.
Like electricity?
I don't know. Just the access to all the things we have access to now that are dependent on the globalization, basically, which just aren't sustainable.
This is from King Milkfart, and they say, how do you feel about a supposed impending event that is coming? Do you feel anxious, happy, excited? How do you feel?
Well, first of all, great question. Almost a trick question. Very, very clever. Very, very well worded. There's been a lot of talk about something happening. I am aware through certain channels of that same discussion. It may not necessarily be the exact dates that people are thinking right now. And quite frankly, we're not really quite sure what to think of it. Right now, there's a lot of innuendos and rumors going around. There is some discussion behind closed doors about maybe something occurring.
Exact alignment will happen in 2026 at Easter.
What will happen?
The alignment she told me about, that the star of Regulus would be on the horizon in front of the Sphinx. At that moment, there'd be a new knowledge. Well, I had no idea if this was even possible, but these astronomers run it through the machines, and it comes out that star is going to come up on the horizon in Easter of 2026. And from that point forward, they started remote viewing.
And I would say I've heard 2027 in a kind of an official capacity I can't reveal. So I think I would say that people in the government are aware of something happening, and that there's limited time, a few more years to prepare the people, and that's what's ramping up this acceleration from the previous 7 decades of not even acknowledging it to now we are acknowledging it at a faster and faster pace.
The biggest takeaway for folks to understand is that things are happening on it's not a disclosure, it's a scheduled dissemination. And so certain things have to be set up before other things can be revealed.
Can you elaborate on the 2027 date and just let people know what you were told about that, or what's upcoming here for people?
2026 date. It's amazing to see everybody just claiming this every day now. 2026, 2027, that year. Something's going to happen. Well, let me tell you, in 2013, I was given that date by the lady about a future time that a new knowledge would come and the world would shift into a time of peace afterward, but not without trouble. And that's what she told me, and along with a lot more. But I put it all in writing to a couple of generals at the Pentagon.
Anyways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do.
That the year 2027 has emerged in various social media venues. I was asked about my knowledge of that year. I, John Ramirez, acknowledged that 2027 seemed to loom large within the channeler and spiritual consciousness communities. I suggested that they research what Anjali and Chris Bledsoe have stated.
And Chris was telling me about the apocalyptic visions that he was having. And I already knew by that time that this was something that absolutely happened to people who were experiencers. But I also told him this. I said, you know, Chris, people have been having these apocalyptic visions for over 2,000 years. And we're still here. I said, so it could possibly be that, you know, this might happen. I mean, who am I to say that it's not going to happen?
I've been pushed back by CIA for 3 things. And one of them was 2027. One of them was 2027.
So again, I'll let you decide for yourself. I highly recommend checking out that video I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Again, link in the description. Go check that out. You know, I don't even know what to say, y'all. This is one of those things where these kind of things are used to activate people, right? And you tell them something secretly like this, and now it's getting out, but you tell them something secretly, you know, something's coming to destroy the planet or whatever, and then you get them to do things for you because they think they're doing it for humanity, right? And I've seen a lot of that in the UFO community, and it's kind of sad, to be honest with you, to see people probably doing things they would never do. And when I say doing things they would never do, I mean like nefarious things. I've been the victim of it myself, and it's disgusting, if I'm being honest. So, look, I'm not going to dredge on too much about this, but be careful out there. Be careful of what you activate yourself with information from the UFO community. Does that make sense? Right? If you want to take the data in, that's fine, but just be careful, you know, activating yourself from information you hear, right? And thinking, oh, something's coming. I need to do something. You know what I mean? Just be careful out there. All right, y'all. We'll see you on the next video. Links in the description. Remember, vetters, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.